I speak tonight for the dignity of man and the destiny of democracy. What happened in Selma is part of a far larger movement which reaches into every section of America. This bill will strike down restrictions to voting in all elections.
Today we celebrate our noble tradition by signing our newest civil rights law, the National Voter Registration Act of 1993.
Today we renew a bill that helped bring a community on the margins into the life of American democracy. I am proud to sign the Voting Rights Act Reauthorization and Amendments Act of 2006.
Young people are fired up about the 2008 election.
Large numbers of African Americans are turning up at the polls in what could be a historic turnout among the nation's largest minority voting group.
11 o'clock on the East Coast, we can report history.
Barack Obama is projected to be the next president of the United States of America.
This mathematically makes no sense to me.
Some of these
cheating has happened. I don't believe it. I think this is voter fraud.
Several new voting laws recently enacted in the United States.
The Republicans will take control of the House of Representatives.
Voter ID, which is going to allow Governor Romney to win the state of Pennsylvania. Done.
Experts found that African-American voters were nearly twice as likely to lack voter ID.
What we've seen this year is by far the most significant rollback of voting rights since the Jim Crow era.
We cut Obama by 5%, and I think that probably voter ID had helped a bit in that.
The U.S. Supreme Court today took the teeth out of a law enacted nearly 50 years ago.
Since 1965, the Voting Rights Act has policed voting discrimination, but today's decision effectively puts it on hold.
At issue, a decades-old provision in the law that requires 9 states, mostly in the South, to get approval from the federal government before changing voting laws or procedures.
The ACLU of Wisconsin filed that lawsuit today, calling the state's voter ID law unconstitutional.
Today, the ACLU filed a lawsuit challenging recent cuts in voting hours.
It seems like we're playing like a game of whack-a-mole right now. Every time we whack down something like a voter ID law, some new tactic pops up.
From Texas to Virginia, state and local governments have taken steps to require voter identification, eliminate same-day registration, and to limit voting hours and locations.
Federal appeals court has struck down a North Carolina voter ID law. Civil rights groups have slammed the law, claiming it discriminates against minorities and the poor.
They said it was clear that the intent was to target African Americans with, quote, surgical precision.
I think most people recognize the Republicans have taken over the legislature and they want to have structural options that make it more likely that their voters come out and others that don't.
Well, I think Hillary Clinton is about the weakest candidate the Democrats have ever put up. And now we have photo ID, and I think photo ID is going to make a little bit of a difference as well.
We just got new metrics in. Donald J. Trump is the president of the United States elect.
The new Presidential Commission on Election Integrity, established after President Trump, who lost the popular vote, insisted 3 to 5 million people voted illegally.
State after state can't point to a single instance of in-person voter impersonation, not one.
Again, you don't have any hard physical evidence that this happened.
We've seen time and time again when Republicans can't win outright as far as votes, then they resort to what many would call cheating.
We have to go through extra hurdles to prove where we reside with our tribal IDs that have to be changed now to have physical addresses.
Voter suppression is an issue all over the United States. And right now, one of the most prominent examples is in Georgia.
He's running against you for governor and overseeing state elections.
Yes, so, he is both the player and the umpire.
Voters agreed to restore voting rights to convicted felons.
The new law has given an estimated 1.4 million people who've completed their sentences the right to vote in the next election.
Not only do I see myself differently, but the state now sees me differently. The state now sees me as somebody that is worthy to have a voice again.
I really feel like a citizen, you know, not just a person, but I would feel like an American.
The Florida Senate passed a bill Friday that would require formerly incarcerated people with felony convictions to repay all fines and fees to courts before their voting rights are restored.
The ACLU announced it's suing the state over the new law,
claiming it guts Amendment 4.
The Supreme Court set to hear oral arguments this week on whether the Trump administration can include a very controversial citizenship question on the 2020 census.
Challengers say the question could lead to millions of people not responding to the census, and that could affect how federal money is allocated and how many representatives each state gets in Congress.
The justices in this ruling saying the Census Bureau cannot go forward with putting this citizenship question on the 2020 census.
The history of democracy in this country has never been a simple story of linear progress. We have overcome every moment of backlash, and we will overcome this one and move closer to a democracy in which everyone can participate and be treated equally.